We interrupt scheduled programming to bring you this disturbing and late-breaking news flash.
I'm Sherman Scallop, and this is the news from the Benthos Broadcasting Corporation. Hello and good evening. We have reports coming in regarding a situation unfolding at the harbour topside. We will now go live to our terrestrial correspondent, Fiona Spruce, who is at the scene. Fiona, what can you tell us about what's happening up there?
Thank you, Sherman. I'm here at Millport Harbour today, where chaos erupted in the Benthos, as bays like these behind me have yet again been dredged. The after effects on this sedimentary habitat have previously been unknown, until this groundbreaking report by J.M. Hall Spencer and P.G. Moore. Previous studies have struggled to conduct this research due to a lack of unfished ocean beds. The Hall, Spencer and Moore report is part of a larger investigation into the ecology of the marl habitat. Marl is particularly important because it is home to high levels of biodiversity. However, this habitat cannot regrow quickly after the outrageous dredging. I have been Fiona Spruce for the Benthos Broadcasting Corporation. Back to you in the studio, Sherman.
Sweet baby Jesus and the three bears, Fiona. That does sound serious. One can only assume that this is going to have impact Merrill residents square in their particulars, and hard. We now go to local resident Barbara Byval to get her thoughts on what must be a devastating turn of events.
So I was just sitting down to have me 6th cup of Earl Grey tea and a nice slice of coral cake when all of a sudden me cosy wee sandhouse started shaking and crumbling around me shell-like bivalves. Heavens to Murgatroyd, I thought. What in the ocean was all that bloomin' noise? Well, I'll tell you what that noise was. It was them bloomin' man-boats taking away our homes and spilling our tea. I think it's a bloomin' disgrace, and I want to know what's going to be done about it. What's that sturgeon woman going to do? I mean, I'm out of cake, and it's cold here. I mean, is there any chance I could maybe get a Sherman's autograph?
Well, I'll be a some bitch if that ain't an absolute shocker. You heard it from the seahorse's mouth there, folks. There must be some kind of scientific implications. And I'll be a sea monkey's uncle if we don't have this handy segment that we like to call Science Corner, hosted as always by Dr. Sally Starfish. Sally.
Thank you, Sherman. The researchers compared two sites. At the first site, the use of demersal fishing gear had been prohibited since 1968. At Site 2, scallop dredging has been occurring for the past 40 years. Site 1 had much higher population densities of scallop species Apopectin opercularis and Pectin maximus than Site 2, with A. opercularis being absent from Site 2 altogether. No P. maximus individuals older than 7 years were present at Site 2, compared to Site 1 where mature individuals predominated. Scallop dredge marks were also common at Site 2. At Site 1, roughly circular byssus nests built up by the bivalve Lamaria hyans were built 20 centimetres up from the marl bed surface. At Site 2, L. hyans were absent but dead shells were abundant. The study also revealed the immediate and long-term effects of scallop dredging. Immediate effects included the elimination of many natural features of the seabed, such as ripples, crab feeding pits and burrows along the dredging tracks. The granulometric structure of the surface sediment had also shifted compared with unfished areas nearby, with mud and sand being brought to the surface, marl gravel being sculpted into ridges up to 3 centimetres high, and live marl was buried up to 8 centimetres below the surface sediment. Sediment core sampling over the following 4 years showed a gradual return to the upper layer of marl gravel at both sites. But 5 months after dredging, there were 70 to 80% fewer live marl phalli in the test cores than in cores taken before dredging, with no sense of recovery in numbers or area covered over the following 4 years. I've been Dr. Sally Starfish. Back to you, Sherman.
For 4 effing years? I can't believe this. I mean, it's utterly unbelievable. Can you believe it? It all does sound jolly serious though, and I for one would like to hear what our elected officials have to say on the matter, and how they plan to tackle this less than believable issue. I now go to the Right Honourable Nicola Sturgeon for her comments. Nicola.
There is a large amount of evidence to show that the major impact of toad
evidence also shows that there has been a sustained impact over the last 30 to 40 years, as scallop catches have declined since the 1960s. Previous studies also indicate that most sedimentary benthic systems on the European continental shelf have been modified by fishing activities in the last 100 years.
Historical data from one of the sites used in this study also shows extensive changes over the last 100 years. It has changed from a living marl bed to a predominantly dead marl with fewer species. European legislation states that exploitation of marl habitats must be compatible with their maintenance at a favourable conservation status. However, most Clyde beds have been extensively modified by scallop dredging.
In fact, this single study that only involved 3 dredges had effects that were clearly identifiable 4 years later. Further scallop dredging would considerably reduce the amount of living marl. The findings of this study strengthen moves to find pristine marl beds for conservation in Europe. In fact, there is a project to develop management of 4 candidate marine special areas of conservation containing marl beds within the UK. Back to you in the studio.
Well, that does sound nice, doesn't it? Well, on that note, that just about wraps up this really important news bulletin, which in no way belittles the scientific paper that it's based on. But before we go, here's Kenny with the weather.
It's going to be wet.
Stay salty, folks.